Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Friday the 13th of May. I'm Andrew Wilson and this is Scotland at 7. First this evening I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 79 of the illegal Russian invasion, and then I will take a look at today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. A court in Kyiv will hear the first war crime trial of the invasion. Vadim Shishimarin, 21, a commander in Russia's Kantemirovskaya tank division, is accused of shooting dead an unarmed man aged 62 who was on a bicycle and talking on his mobile phone in the village of Chupakivka in Sumy. Russia has threatened to cut gas supplies to Finland after Finnish leaders said they wouldn't apply to join NATO, according to reports. The Republican Senator, Rand Paul, has blocked the passage of a $40 billion aid bill for Ukraine in the US Senate. Paul demanded changes, including an inspector general to oversee how the money is spent. Michael Carpenter, the US ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, said that at least several thousand Ukrainians have been sent to so-called filtration centers in Russia, where they are subject to brutal interrogations. Tens of thousands more have been evacuated to Russia or Russia-controlled territory. Carpenter said that one survivor said everyone was afraid to be taken to Donetsk, where they could be the victim of further investigation or murder. Ukraine said it had damaged and set on fire a Russian Navy logistics ship in the Black Sea. The Vsevolod Bobrov was near Snake Island, said Sergei Bratchuk, a spokesman for the Odessa Regional Military Administration in southern Ukraine. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Irina Vereshchuk, said very difficult negotiations were ongoing to evacuate 38 seriously wounded fighters from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol in exchange for Russian prisoners of war. The number of people who have fled Ukraine to escape Russia's invasion has exceeded 6 million, the UN's refugee agency has said. A further 8 million people have been displaced inside Ukraine. Nearly 100 children were killed in Ukraine during April alone, but actual figures could be significantly higher, the United Nations Children's Fund has said. UNICEF's Deputy Executive Director, Omer Abdi, demanded an end to the bombing of Ukrainian schools, adding that 1 in 6 UNICEF-supported schools in eastern Ukraine had been damaged or destroyed as of last week. European Union leaders plan to assess Ukraine's membership next month, according to the French Foreign Ministry. The UN's Human Rights Council has passed a resolution to investigate alleged abuses by Russian troops in parts of Ukraine formerly under their control, with a view to holding those responsible to account. The resolution passed by a strong majority, with 33 members voting in favour and 2, China and Eritrea, against. There were 12 abstentions. And the UN Human Rights Chief, Michelle Bachelet, said 1,000 bodies had been recovered in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, in recent weeks. Many of the violations it is verifying since the Russian invasion may amount to war crimes, she said. A Russian soldier has appeared in court accused of murdering an unarmed man on a bicycle at the start of the first war crime trial in Ukraine since Vladimir Putin invaded the country. Vadim Shishimarin, a commander of the Kantemirovskaya tank division, arrived at Kyiv's small district court number 3 in a grey and blue tracksuit and handcuffs for a preliminary hearing. The 21-year-old is charged with the premeditated murder of a 62-year-old man who was not named in court. Shishimarin is being held in Ukrainian custody, and the case is scheduled to resume on Wednesday next week. Shishimarin's lawyer said his client had confessed to killing the victim, but had not yet discussed whether to plead guilty. The defendant, who was helped by a Russian interpreter to follow the hearing, spoke briefly to confirm his name and that he understood the charges against him. "Yes, I understand," he said. It is alleged that Shysymarin had been fighting in the Sumy region of northeast Ukraine when he killed a civilian on 28 February in the village of Chupakivka. He is accused of shooting at a car after his convoy of military vehicles came under attack from Ukrainian forces. He then drove the car away with 4 other soldiers as they sought to flee. Shysymarin, who is from the city of Ust-Ilyinsk in the southeastern Russian region of Irkutsk, shot dead the unarmed man who was on a bicycle and talking on his mobile phone after he was ordered to kill a civilian so he would not report them to Ukrainian defenders, according to prosecutors. The crime is said to have happened dozens of meters from the victim's house and was committed using an AK-74 Kalashnikov assault rifle. The trial is another propaganda triumph for Kyiv and comes as the number of crimes registered by Ukraine's general prosecutor surpassed 11,200, and UNICEF reported that at least 100 children were killed in the war in April alone. 2 further unnamed soldiers are expected to have a first hearing within days on allegations that they used a Soviet truck-mounted 122mm multiple rocket launcher to carry out the artillery shelling of homes and civilian buildings in the village of Kozachka Lopan in the Kharkiv district. They also allegedly hit an educational institution in the city of Dergachev from Belgorod in Russia. Ukrainian forces have repelled a Russian attempt to cross a strategically significant river west of Severodonetsk in the Donbass, incurring heavy losses in the process, according to the UK Defence Intelligence. The UK Defence Briefing said Russia had lost significant armoured manoeuvre elements from a battalion tactical group, a formation with about 800 personnel at full strength, as well as pontoon bridging equipment. Severodonetsk is the easternmost town held by Ukrainian forces on the Donbass, and the effort to cross the Seversky Donets River to its west was likely to have been intended to be a fresh attempt by the Russians to cut off the defending forces. Ukraine's defense ministry tweeted out pictures of a smashed pontoon bridge and destroyed armoured vehicles on Wednesday, describing them as victims of artillerymen of the 17th Tank Brigade. The UK Defence Intelligence Assessment appears to verify that, and to quantify the level of loss, effectively the equipment strength of 1 battalion of about 100 such Russian units operating in and near Ukraine. Conducting river crossings in a contested environment is a highly risky manoeuvre and speaks to the pressure the Russian commanders are under to make progress in their operations in eastern Ukraine, the MOD said this morning. Russian forces have made incremental progress on the north side of the river and were assessed to be in control of the Rubizh to the northwest of Severodonetsk on Thursday by the Institute for the Study of War. They will likely launch a ground offensive on or around Severodonetsk in the coming days, the institute said, but added that it was unclear if Russian forces can encircle, let alone capture, Severodonetsk, as the impetus on the Russian effort in the Donbass region appeared generally to have faded. Ukraine has also claimed it has damaged a Russian Navy logistics ship near Snake Island in the Black Sea today. Satellite imagery provided by Maxar showed the aftermath of what it said were probable missile attacks on a Russian Cernal-class landing craft near the island, close to Ukraine's sea border with Romania. Renewed fighting around Snake Island in recent days may become a battle for control of the western Black Sea coast, according to defense officials, as Russian forces struggle to make headway in Ukraine's north and east. Ukrainian forces are also reported to have driven Russian troops out of the region around the second largest city, Kharkiv. Reuters news agency said its journalists had confirmed Ukraine was in control of territory stretching to the banks of the Seversky Donets River, that's about 25 miles east of Kharkiv. UK ministers are picking numbers out of the air when setting civil service staffing targets amid reports the government wants to reduce its headcount by about 90,000, the head of a trades union has said. The Prime Minister is understood to have given the Cabinet the task of cutting staff by a fifth, saying every bit of cash saved on government spending could be better used elsewhere. Johnson has reportedly ordered ministers to return civil servant numbers to those of 2016 levels over coming years, with staffing having increased by almost 25% to 475,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Ministers are expected to report back within a month with plans for achieving the cuts from their departments. But Dave Penman, the General Secretary of the FDA trade union, told BBC Radio 4's Today programme that the plans were unrealistic. He said, "That's what civil servants do. Part of their job is to think about how we do things more efficiently, and they have already committed to 5% cuts in their budgets as part of the spending review." The SNP's Deputy Westminster leader, Kirsten Oswald MP, called the plans detached from reality, pointing out that Scotland could be even harder hit by the proposals, having already seen more than 6,000 reserved civil service jobs cut since 2011, 20% of the workforce at a rate of nearly double the UK average of 11%. Kirsten Oswald said, "These staggering plans from the Prime Minister are completely detached from reality. Figures show that the percentage of job cuts in reserved departments in Scotland has been almost double that of the rest of the UK. The DWP, HMRC and MOD have all shown far greater falls in job numbers than the rest of the UK over the past decade, despite boasts in 2011 about how many jobs the Westminster government controlled in Scotland. Scotland has already paid the price of Westminster government job cuts," she continued. "It would therefore be another example of how out of touch the Westminster government is in Scotland if it sacks even more civil servants in Scotland." Political leaders in Belfast and Dublin have condemned the Democratic Unionist Party for paralysing the Stormont Assembly and Executive in a dramatic escalation of the party's campaign against the Northern Ireland Protocol. Sinn Féin and other parties in Northern Ireland described the moves as shameful and disgraceful and said it treated voters with contempt. The row turned what was supposed to be the inaugural day of the Assembly into a farce, in which newly elected representatives headed to Stormont to sign the roll and become eligible to collect salaries, but faced being left without duties, functions, or power. "Today is the day we should be forming an executive to put money in people's pockets and start to fix our health service," said Michelle O'Neill, Sinn Féin's deputy leader and the region's putative First Minister. The DUP have confirmed they will punish the public and not turn up. They are disgracefully holding the public to ransom for their Brexit mess. Shameful, she continued. The DUP announced earlier on Friday it would refuse to nominate a speaker, which will pull the plug on the legislature as well as the executive. Under power-sharing rules, the Assembly and Executive cannot function without the DUP. The decision plunged Northern Ireland into a political crisis, a week after a historic Assembly election in which Sinn Féin overtook the DUP as the biggest single party. It is a message to Downing Street and the EU that the DUP is willing to create a destabilising vacuum in Northern Ireland to secure changes to the protocol, which puts post-Brexit checks on goods entering the region from Great Britain. The mothballing of Stormont means civil servants and ministers from the outgoing administration, with reduced powers, will run Northern Ireland in what has been termed a zombified state. They cannot make important decisions or launch any new initiatives. Naomi Long, the leader of the Alliance Party, the third biggest party after Sinn Féin and the DUP, also excoriated the DUP and said its assembly members should not be allowed to claim salaries while Stormont was paralysed. The former Brexit Minister David Frost has said that the UK should not fear a trade war with the EU. In a provocative newspaper column, he said the UK cannot be defeated by Brussels and needed to make sure it is ready for the consequences of a unilateral move to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is expected to announce plans for legislation next week to disapply some of the protocol in a risky move that could result in sanctions or even the suspension of the trade deal that Lord Frost negotiated in December 2020. Urging Chancellor Rishi Sunak to avoid a trade war, Kate Forbes has said that the UK government must not introduce legislation which breaks international law, but instead must find sustainable solutions to help ease trade between the UK and EU countries. In a letter to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Ms Forbes outlines concerns that the approach to the Northern Ireland Protocol talks is bringing threats of a trade war. She also said that the Trade and Cooperation Agreement is failing to deliver for many sectors, including food and drink businesses in Scotland. The letter states, "I am deeply concerned about ongoing threats by the UK government to introduce legislation to breach international law. The food and drink sector in Scotland and the UK has borne the brunt of the hard Brexit pursued by the UK government, particularly through the loss of freedom of movement and free trade. A trade war could lead to further delays to exports, including in sectors like seafood, where there is a premium on freshness, further bureaucracy and barriers, and potentially crippling tariffs. It is increasingly clear that the Trade and Cooperation Agreement is failing to deliver for many businesses, and that the UK government's approach to the Northern Ireland Protocol talks is exacerbating matters. This has serious implications for key parts of Scotland's food and drink sector, such as the ongoing impasse over the export of seed potatoes, while also impacting on other crucial areas like the UK's legal association to the vital Horizon Europe research programme. The devolved governments have direct interests at stake in the protocol, particularly in trade and border control, yet despite repeated requests, the UK government has shown no willingness to engage on these issues, and we are excluded from discussions. The UK's Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, has admitted that the new nuclear push could initially increase household energy bills. As he told the BBC, nuclear is back on the table because the government considers it a sustainable energy source. The SNP's energy spokesperson, Alan Brown MP, said that nuclear energy facilities could take years, if not decades, to become fully operational, costing the taxpayer millions, all the while no immediate action is taken on the cost of living crisis. Seeking a more renewable approach from the Tories to energy policy, the Kilmarnock and Loudoun MP urged the UK government to learn lessons from Scotland, where in 2021 the amount of renewable energy produced was enough to power the entire nation of Scotland for 3 years. Based on the contract awarded by the UK government to Hinkley Point C, the electricity that will be generated by that nuclear power station will be priced at £92.50 per megawatt hour for a 35-year contract, whereas the electricity currently being generated from offshore wind is currently priced at £39.65 per megawatt hour on a 15-year concession. Based on those figures, Hinkley Point C alone could add up to £40 a year to consumer bills, compared to wind power that could reduce bills by £8 a year. Commenting, Alan Brown MP said, "This admission shows that the Westminster government's obsession with nuclear power isn't about the cost of living, nor quickly tackling climate change." These nuclear facilities that came with grandiose promises of cheaper bills could take decades to build and become operational. That isn't good enough for the families whose energy bills are out of control now in 2022. Worst of all, the new stations will tie bill payers into a 60-year contract payback, with capital and finance costs of a new station estimated to be as high as £63 billion, according to the Tory government's own impact assessment. He continued, "We are already in a position where households are having to decide between heating or eating. They need immediate, direct action to reduce their astronomical bills, not another Tory con trick that could actually lead to increased bills down the line." In a statement today, Police Scotland announced that it had agreed to pay former police constable Rona Malone £947,909.07 in settlement of her legal claim at an employment tribunal. The Employment Tribunal has upheld multiple claims that Ms Malone, a former firearms officer, had been victimised by horrific boys' club sexism while she served in Police Scotland's Armed Response Unit in Edinburgh. The tribunal found that Ms Malone had been victimised under the Equalities Act 2010 after she complained about a written memo which recommended that two women firearms officers should not be deployed together if a male one was available. The tribunal heard that there was a culture of misogynist abuse and bullying in the Edinburgh Firearms Unit. Chief Constable Ian Livingston has provided a personal apology to Ms Malone for the serious issues highlighted in the Employment Tribunal judgment, including Police Scotland's poor response when a dedicated and promising officer raised legitimate concerns. The Chief Constable also emphasised his personal commitment to leading change in policing in Scotland, which drives equality and inclusion to improve the experiences of all women, including officers and staff. Israeli forces have attacked a funeral procession for the Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh, shot dead this week, kicking and hitting people with batons and causing mourners carrying her coffin to lose balance and drop it to the ground. Police claimed that the mourners were disrupting public order. Footage showed the coffin of Shireen Abu Akleh on mourners' shoulders outside St. Joseph's Hospital in the Israeli-annexed East Jerusalem. The sound of stun grenades was heard as police rushed in to attack the mourners, including the pallbearers, causing the coffin to fall to the ground. Israel forbids public displays of the Palestinian flag and often uses force to prevent people from hoisting them at rallies and protests in the city. A senior Palestinian figure, Hanan Ashrawi, tweeted that savage Israeli special forces viciously attacked the funeral procession bearing the coffin of Abu Akleh as it left St. Joseph's Hospital. He continued, "The inhumanity of Israel is on full display," said the former Palestinian Liberation Organization official. Israeli police said they had held talks with Abu Akleh's family in order to enable a respectable funeral. Unfortunately, they said, under the auspices of the funeral and taking cynical advantage of it, hundreds of people began disrupting public order before the funeral even began. The 51-year-old reporter was shot in the head on Wednesday morning in the West Bank city of Jenin, during what her colleagues at the scene said was a burst of Israeli fire on a small group of journalists covering an expected Israeli military raid. Video of the incident showed Abu Akleh was wearing a helmet and body armour clearly marked press. Ali Samoudi, a producer for Al Jazeera who was shot in the back, told The Guardian from his hospital bed that contrary to claims made by Israeli officials, there were no gunmen standing near the journalists when they were targeted. A new round of funding to support fishing businesses and wider marine organisations in coastal communities is now open for applications. Now in its second year, the Marine Fund Scotland has an overall budget of up to £14 million. It was introduced by the Scottish Government to replace the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, which UK businesses no longer have access to following Brexit. Marine Fund Scotland will support projects which contribute to innovative and sustainable marine sectors, reduce carbon emissions, and support coastal communities. It will reflect Scotland's Blue Economy vision, which was published earlier this year. Helping to improve safety standards will also be a key aim, including individual fishers upskilling their safety training. Announcing the second year of the fund at the Skipper Expo in Aberdeen, the Rural Affairs Secretary Vary Gudgeon said, "Building on the success of the first year of the Marine Fund Scotland, the renewed focus of the fund this year will be on supporting our ambitions set out in the Blue Economy vision. It highlights our commitment to investing in Scotland's seafood and wider marine sectors and communities which rely on them, supporting jobs and livelihoods while helping to protect the marine environment." Communities, groups and individuals are being invited to share their views in a consultation on the creation of Scotland's first new national parks in almost 20 years. The Scottish Government committed to establish at least one new national park in Scotland by the end of this parliamentary session in 2026, as part of the Bute House Agreement with the Scottish Green Party and the Programme for Government. The public consultation is looking at what people value about Scottish national parks and what these areas should deliver in future, in particular, how they can help to protect and restore nature, tackle climate change and promote sustainable land use. This will be followed by a longer period during which communities, local government and organisations will be encouraged and supported to develop proposals for new national parks. The Biodiversity Minister Lorna Slater MSP visited Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park to open the consultation and to speak to pupils at Luss Primary School who have been involved in a local COP26 legacy tree planting project. Ms Slater said, "It is almost 2 decades since Scotland's first national parks in Loch Lomond and the Trossachs and the Cairngorms were established. Both are home to some of the country's most outstanding scenery, are internationally important areas for nature and receive millions of visitors each year. They work hard to tackle the biodiversity and climate crisis, help manage facilities for visitors, promote responsible access, and develop sustainable communities. They have become jewels in Scotland's crown, and now is the time to add to them." And that was our final item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station and to make new programmes for you. If you would like to support us, then please consider subscribing or donating to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. It looks like this week's financial challenge has been met, so thank you to everyone who has helped. However, the need for financial support has not gone away. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland and on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Meantime, Leslie will be here at 12 noon on Sunday with the Full Scottish, so please tune in and join her then. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has been watching this evening, and that's the way it is at very nearly Scotland at 7:30. I hope that you can join us again soon here on Broadcasting Scotland and that you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.